I was born and educated in England, and I studied at Durham University, where I earned a degree in Chinese studies. And then after that, I spent really most of my career in China and in Eastern Europe. I trained as a foreign correspondent with Reuters, and I spent nearly 2 decades in journalism. And then in 1998, I moved to the investigation industry, first of all working with Kroll, and later with Pricewaterhouse as a country manager for investigations in China. I then established my own company, ChinaWise, in 2003, and ran that company very successfully for 10 years until at the end of that period we were shut down by the Chinese authorities.
Corporate governance and leadership tone, I think that is actually the key, because employees in the company actually need to understand what they expect from senior leadership team and what do they expect is the corporate culture of the company. So once they have that as the key, I think it's easier for them to understand the manner in which they should be conducting practices, dealing with clients, third parties, or even between employees themselves.
If the leaders of a company engage in behaviour or conversation that displays a tolerance for corruption, if they indicate that they think it is okay to use corrupt means to win orders, if they do these things, if they accept false descriptions in their accounting books and so on, if they do all of these things, then they're sending, again, the wrong signal. And this is also, a point of suspicion for the investigator. All these things send a signal to their employees that corruption is okay. And as a result, the whole company, the whole organisation will be corroded by corruption. That is precisely what happened to a couple of pharmaceutical companies in China.
In 1972, the Prevention of Bribery Ordinance was passed by the Legislative Council and became law. And a few years later was established the Independent Commission Against Corruption, known to everyone in Hong Kong as the ICAC. This is one of the first times in any common law jurisdiction that a completely independent body was set up, whose sole function was to investigate and prosecute corruption. Without blowing our own trumpet, the ICAC has been extraordinarily effective in eradicating corruption, certainly in the public sector, such that we have moved from possibly one of the most corrupt jurisdictions in Asia pre-1970 to perhaps one of the least corrupt jurisdictions, certainly in this region.
On an international level, companies are cooperating to tighten up money laundering situations, and that is being done hand in hand with tighter tax regimes. So what they're doing is they are really tightening the noose, and they have made it much harder for corrupt people to hide their money. So as a result, we're seeing more and more companies exposed and punished if they have a corrupt history.
In any times, where economic times are bad, there's a lot more pressure on businesses to bring in more sales. There's a lot more competition for those sales. So there's always a temptation there to do something that they might not do otherwise, or do even more of what they might have been doing already. And by that you may be paying bribes to win or retain business that they've got already.
A very important issue is the access to information. What we understand in our own cultural background to be public records in China are no longer public records. several years ago, the Chinese authorities decided to obstruct access to things like personal data records or certain parts of incorporation records, which enable the corruption investigator and the fraud investigator to close the circle and connect the dots on the identities of various people involved in a corruption scheme and their relationship with each other. This is now a no-go area and severely hinders corruption investigations in China. So the corruption investigator or the forensic accountant has to be extremely creative and intelligent and smart in dealing with other materials and sources available to enable them to connect the dots.